Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Outside, the Art and Science of Watch Collection. Today we're going to take a look at Nick's collection, and it's a lot of fun. To me it was a lot of surprise because I learned a lot. There were watches in his collection I knew nothing about, and those are always the most fun for me. In fact, there were brands I'd never heard of before. Okay, before we get started, the wristwatch I'm wearing today is a Parmigiani Fleurier Hemispheres. This is my travel watch when I go places. So I'll be traveling to perhaps the other side of town. All right, let's start off. To me, the first watch I want to look at, and this one is really cool. It's sort of like the Man on the Moon Omega, except it's a Sturmansky, which I think means flight, and it was the first watch in space. The Omega wasn't. It was a Russian watch because the Russians had the first man in space, and he took a watch with him, and this is it. And it has a Poljot movement in it, and it comes in this orange capsule-like thing, a little space capsule. I just think it is the coolest watch. And, you know, instead of an Omega Man on the Moon, it's a Soviet in space watch. Anyway, cool watch, really interesting, and so that's the first of Nick's watches. The second one's, now, this is one I don't see too much. There's two. I see, you know, Breitlings are pretty common. And this Breitling is a quartz caliber B50. And the thing about Breitlings that I do like, I like their dials. They don't have much for movement yet, but they're getting there. And the thing I like, I don't know why, I like that big 9 and the 3. It just sort of hits right. But of these two watches, the one I really like is Ball. It's called the Engineer Hydrocarbon Aero GMT 2. You know, it's a chronometer. It has dual time. The red arrow, it's about 6 o'clock right now. A little after 6 o'clock, you can see the red arrow down there. And it looks like it's floating. The first part of the arrow is black and against a black background, so you can't see it. And then you have this sort of red arrow pointer, and so it looks like it's sort of floating around, showing the second time zone. And it uses an ETA 2893-2 is the base on it. And I don't think Ball has its own movement yet, but uses primarily, I think, ETA movements. But this is a cool looking watch. I really like the looks of this watch. And it's got that dual color, more of a blood red than a Pepsi kind of look to it. But I think it's a very cool watch. I like that one a lot. It's chronograph. And a chronometer too, both. All right, this next watch, now the Schomburg Classico, it's an automatic, and it's got it runs on what they call an SW20A, which has a base of an ETA 2824/2. But boy, Schomburg, it's a German watch company, and they're really very interesting watches. They also use some Unitas. They had I think it's a 6498, and they had that, the way it was laid out, it was either 6498 or 97. It was made into a regulator, and so they had the small seconds where they were at 9 o'clock, and then at 3 o'clock they have the hours, and then the middle is where you have the minute hand on the Schomburg. The Schomburg Classico, that was his most expensive watch. It's a dress watch, and it's a good looking dress watch. I like this one. Reminds me a lot of H. Moser kinds of things. They have that smooth color in the middle, and then they have the indexes in white gold or rose gold, as this one has. And then you flip it over, and they have the rotor matches the color of the dial. It's a cool watch, very cool watch. The next one is this one. The interesting thing about this Certina, now the Certina is like a typical kind of quartz watch with it's got a little window there, H for the hour, and then to the right is the M for the minutes, and then S for seconds, and then finally, I think a tenth of a second down below. But the interesting thing about this was this thing looks like it's from the, I don't know, it looks like 70s or 80s. It's called a Chrono Olympic quartz. And he got it NOS, new old stock. And he says the thing was, and you can look at it and see it's in perfect shape. It looks brand new. He said, but the insides weren't in very good shape when he got it. And I guess a German engineer, I think he knew him. He said, hey, you know, could you fix this up? Guy went to town on it and fixed it up. It looks like new. It's a chronograph too, as you can see. But this is a sort of a neat retro watch. Again, this is sort of a cool thing. He says he doesn't wear it much, but it's still a fun watch to have. All right, the last one that I'm going to talk about is a August Raymond. Now, this was a watch company I hadn't heard about before, and I thought, it's like one of these crowd-funded things that pop up and disappear here and there, do a little stuff and not around. Boy, was I wrong. This thing's been around since 1898. And it's in this little town called Tramelon in the Bern canton. Canton's like a state or a province in Switzerland. And it's up in the Jura Mountains. And it was started like, well over almost 120 years ago up there. So it's been around for quite a while. And the one of the things that was really interesting was that I found is that in 1908, the August Raymond bought a company called Val de Joux Watch Company. And they bought it because they wanted someone to make their movements. So they bought Val de Joux. And what happened was that, well, later on they sold it or something happened. And then it went on to become Val Joux. And I thought, wow, here's this major watchmaker. And then in this particular watch, they used a 7751, which is a Val Joux, ETA Val Joux 7751. And looking at this and looking at the dial here, you can see how the dial side of the movement is reflected in here. In other words, they took all of those functions, and they really made an interesting watch. It reminds me of a much more expensive watch, and it's not so much, I think, that they're trying to ape expensive watches, but they just have a good designer and good design. One of my new favorite features of a watch is instead of having a date window, they have the hand date. They have a little, and the favorite way to see them do it is with this little crescent cup. And as it goes through different dates, it's on like the 22nd of whatever right now, I guess March, because you can see in the month and day window, day of the week window up there, you can see it. Then you have the moon phase. And you have it's just like a really interesting timepiece that they have. Well, this is when I say this is Nick's watch. Okay, one other thing that they did, which is another interesting thing, we were talking about the Man on the Moon watch initially that the Russians had. Wasn't man, it was sort of man in space watch. This one, this company, August Raymond, did something very interesting not too long ago. They had a Kickstarter for a quartz watch that was a moon phase with a three-dimensional moon. And I think that the investors in the Kickstarter, they were able to buy them for $575 a piece. And then they sold them for $1,000 something. I think something in that neighborhood. Well, holy smoke! I've been lusting after a Christian Vanderklaw, Real Moon Jour, and that thing, had $20,000, $25,000, $30,000. And here was this thing. These guys we did it with a quartz watch. But the thing that was interesting about it is that here's this really old watch company that is using Kickstarter for this. They said, well, let's raise some money. We're going to try something new. And instead of, I don't know, whatever watch companies had done in the past, this was sort of the modern way to get something going, and they did. So this is a neat little company, and I like the whole eccentricity of the whole thing. So anyway, this is Nick's collection. I'd be very interested to hear what you have to say, and any ideas that you might have for Nick. My idea would be, well, I do have one idea, and that is a Urban Jorgensen. Now, I know this is a Danish, very expensive Danish watch, but I think you can find one, a used one, for right around €5,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. I mean, you have to look, but you can find some. I think that would be a neat Grail watch for Nicholas to have a Danish watch of the highest caliber. And so anyway, that would be my suggestion. I'd like to hear what your suggestions are. And of course, if Nick could throw something at me if he didn't agree with my review. Okay, so until next Friday. This is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Side, the art and science of watch collection. And as always, this is an invitation to subscribe if you'd like.